Good morning, Chin. Good morning, BJ Reiner. Good morning, Jenna. Happy Friday to you. Good morning, Abhinav, and good morning, Hash Brown Swag. It is Friday. How do you pronounce sherbet? I don't know. That's how I don't know. Sherbet. Good morning, MCat. What is Are you talking about? What is sherbet? Wait, I thought it was sherbet. Wait, what? Wait, I've always heard it as sherbet. Abhinav says it's a cool drink in India. Drank during the summers. Wait, what the heck?
Sherbet. Sherbet. Sherbet.
Sorbet and sherbet are different? Wait, let's look up sherbet. What is this? What? Sherbet. Sherbet with an additional R is less common. Wait. They say it's just less commonly used. Wait, what? Sherbet or sherbet? Apparently this is a thing. What are we gonna do about this? What the heck? Everybody I know has called it sherbet. Pronounced sherbet. Persian drink made of fruit juice, water, sweetener, and a cooling component such as snow. Sherbet, pronounced sherbet, is a common misspelling of sherbet that resulted from a common mispronunciation? What's going on? Krista, you've uncovered a conspiracy. Sorbet is the non-dairy one. Isn't that just a snow cone? Where I come from, we call that a snow cone. Oh, that's funny. It's clearly not in a cone, though. Oh, come on. Huh. We call it gola or chuski. Gola. Wait. Let's do both. Ooh. Look at that. Snow cone. Sorbet is often confused with sherbet, which always contains milk products. Jeez, did you just do it again? I thought we've been over this. It's sherbet. Good grief. Burf means ice. I went to Taiwan one summer, and what is it called? But they have their own like shaved ice. Yeah, it looks like this. Oh my gosh. Man, the mango in Taiwan is out of this world. And the desserts you get, they will just pound it with mango. Like it's like water or something. Oh, Lewis! See, you know all about this. Am I correct that in Taiwan, the best mango on the planet exists there? You work at the most famous store in Taiwan? No way. What's that one called? The most famous one. Yeah, I mean, when I was in Taiwan, let's see, it was like 4 or 5 summers ago. Man, I would get like a mango smoothie almost every day, and I've had nothing even close anywhere else. Oh my goodness. Smoothie House. House Taiwan. Wait, this place? You work here? Look at this. Have I tried the milk tea? The milk tea was my favorite. I would get milk tea for breakfast every morning, and I would get Dan Bing. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Oh, wow. Look at that. Dan Bing, I think. Yeah. It's like this egg pancake kind of thing. And I would get this every morning with milk tea. I pronounce it perfect, Dan Bing. Oh man. I didn't want to leave Taiwan. I was like, I could make a new life here. Okay, we better talk about. I know, now I want to eat. Well, your name is Hash Brown Swag. Puerto Rico. Mango smoothie is fire. They were cutting the mangoes with a machete. Ooh. That sounds amazing. Oh man. Mango. Mango, mango, mango. Okay, we gotta change the date here. Because it is no longer the 18th. It's not Monday, it's Friday the 20th. Happy Friday to one and all. Yeah. That's right. And next week, Thanksgiving. That's going to be really nice. That's going to be fantastic. Okay, let's kind of recap what's going on here. So, when you corner in a car, the weight shifts to the outside tires. And when you shift weight, it actually makes the tires at a given axle less, how do I say it? Less grippy in a way. Like the outside tire where most of the load goes, that one gets more grip. But the inside tire that lost normal load, that one lost grip. But the net effect is that there's less grip overall at that axle. Okay, so we're trying to reduce the amount of load transfer that happens when we do racing, because we want the maximum grip. So there's a couple things you can do. You can increase the track width. Number one, like if you widen the distance between your tires, less load transfer is going to happen. If you bring your CG really low, less load transfer is going to happen. And if you reduce the mass of your car, then there's less load to transfer in the first place. So when you think of a formula car, like, what does it look like? Number one, it's really light. It's probably 2 times lighter than your passenger car. Its track width wide, and it's basically on the pavement. It's super low to the ground. So all of those decisions are made for aerodynamic purposes, but it also is for load transfer. All right, so now we're starting to talk about, given that load transfer is going to happen, you can fine tune how much load transfer happens at the front axle versus the rear axle. And why do you care? Well, because if more load transfer happens at your front tires, that makes your car more understeer. If more load transfer happens at your rear tires, that makes you more oversteer. And understeer and oversteer have like a whole gambit of like repercussions. But like an oversteer car, generally the rear tires are going to start to slide before the front tires, and so on. The gold standard is neutral steer. Neutral steer, at least at the grip limit of a car, that's when both of your front and rear tires are reaching the saturating limit at the same time. And that means you're getting the full benefit of the front and rear tires. Both of them are giving all of the gas that they can. So, anyways, we want our cars to be neutral steer, and when load is transferring, we should still try to make the car neutral steer. So, okay, how do we want to do this? So, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to determine how much body roll a car is going to get during cornering. Because first we'll figure out the body roll, and then using that, we'll be able to figure out how much load actually is transferred at the front versus the rear. So you'll see how this happens. And we're going to be using this figure here, this beautiful rendition, to talk about this. So, okay, let's just start working on this. Okay, we're looking at the car from the front. So this one, okay, this is the front, and let's say we're cornering to the driver's right. So actually that'll look to the left for us, but it's to the driver's right. All right, we're gonna say that if I'm going to the right, which tire is this? This is the right front tire. So that's the notation I'm going to use. So if I'm cornering right, and this is the left front tire. So the friction from the road and the tire interface, that creates a force on the tire in that direction. Now, we talked about the roll center earlier. Now, the significance of the roll center is that we have this force that's generated at the ground, and then it's going to transmit like through my tire, through the structural elements of the suspension, and eventually transmit a load to your sprung mass. So up here, the mass above the suspension, that's our sprung mass. Now the significance of the roll center is that it's theoretically, if I could take the forces from the tires and put it at one point on the sprung mass, it'll happen at the roll center. So I'm going to put Fy at the front. It's going to go right there. So that's combining the left front lateral force and the right front lateral force. If we combine it to one point, it's going to be combined at the roll center. Now this same thing is happening at the rear tires, right? So I have Fy at the left rear. I keep forgetting, there's like a standard way, like which of these letters should come first. I think it's right. Okay. And at the other tire in the back. And so we'll have another force at the rear roll center. Fy rear. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, so we're cornering to the right. And notice the body of the car is going to roll to the outside tires, an angle phi, which is what we're showing right here. So it makes sense, like these outer tires are feeling a little bit more load from that. Okay, so I want to start talking about the suspension springs a little bit. And to do this, I think I want to make some room. So maybe can I zoom in more? I'll just write that a little smaller here. All right, let's draw a horizontal line that represents before the car rolls. So if the chassis didn't roll, you know, it would just be upright like this, right? So this angle phi, that body roll angle, it's also going to be in here. So that's what that angle is. And we can think about what the springs looked like before the body rolled. Like both of them were just kind of like this. But now that you see that there was roll, this spring over here, it got compressed that amount. And this spring over here, it got stretched this amount. Okay, let's work on that geometry a little bit. Let's say the distance between these springs at the front, let's call it like SF, the distance between the front springs. And then if we're just looking at like one side, that would be that distance divided by 2. So what I want to do, I want to kind of like zoom in on this triangle here. And I'll kind of exaggerate this roll angle a little bit. Okay, so this top length from here to here, this is going to be that distance between those suspension springs divided by 2. The angle in here, that's that roll angle of the sprung mass. And this distance here, I'm going to say I'm going to call it delta Z. And that's the distance that this spring, what is it? This is the left front tire. That's where this is the distance that spring was compressed. So what I want to do, I want to find a relationship between delta Z and this roll angle. So we can do that really quick. So I know that the tangent of this roll angle is equal to the length of the opposite side, delta Z, divided by this adjacent side, which is that distance between the springs divided by 2. Now, if you use... Wait, actually, let's just solve for this. Okay, so delta Z is equal to SF over 2 the tangent of that angle. If you assume that the bank angle is small, then tangent of phi is approximately equal to phi itself. Small angle assumptions, they're really good up to about like 5 or 10 degrees, and even beyond that a little bit. And we're not going to be seeing more than 10 degrees of body roll for a vehicle anyways. So this approximation is really good. Okay, so this delta Z, this is going to become important. This is telling us how much our suspension springs are going to be compressed at the front or the rear. And we have a relationship between that compression and how much the sprung mass is rolled. Okay, let's see if I'm missing anything here. Okay, what I want to do... I want to do a sum of moments acting on the CG. So the forces that are going to produce moments, we have the front lateral tire force acting at the front roll center. We have the rear lateral tire force acting at the rear roll center. But we also have a moment that's produced by these springs. And so the spring force, let's see. If I compress this spring an amount delta Z, the force from the spring by Hooke's law is going to be the stiffness of the spring. So usually we use K. And let's say this is the stiffness of a suspension spring at the front times delta Z. So this spring, when I roll this way, it's going to produce an upward force on the chassis, which is equal to that stiffness times how much you compress the spring. That's just how a spring works. Same thing here. Oh, wait. On this side, this spring is getting stretched. And so it's actually going to produce the same magnitude of force, but in the opposite direction. So these springs are trying to resist any rolling. Makes sense. All right. So let's start to do the sum of moments on the sprung mass, or rather, sum of moments about the CG. All right. Sum of moments about the CG. Now, there's moments generated in a couple directions. Like we know there's a moment about the like vertical axis, so that's like the yaw motion, and when we're doing steady state cornering, that moment should be balanced, and it depends on the proportion of front and rear lateral force. So if those moments are balanced, then we're not spinning out the car. All right. So I'm not interested in that moment right now. I'm going to talk about a moment about an axis that's parallel with the roll axis. So I'm going to do moments about the CG, and I'm going to be interested in the moments about this axis. Let's see. If I do, because we got this side view up here. So it's kind of like we have the roll axis here, which connects the front and rear roll centers. That's how you define the roll axis. And then I'm making like another axis here. So I'm going to sum the moments acting on the CG about this axis. So we're going to have the front lateral tire force acting at the front roll center, the rear lateral tire force acting at the rear roll center. So we're going to say the distance, the perpendicular distance from that axis is, let's see. That distance is the height of the CG above the roll center. Okay. Here we go. So let's assume the moments are balanced. We're going to be at steady state cornering. And we have a moment created by, let's see. I think this will be a negative moment. I have the combined lateral force from the front, the combined lateral force from the rear, and it's acting over a distance, the height of the CG above the roll center. Foreign Wanderer says, you don't cut your fruit with a machete? I don't. I don't want to lose fingers. Because I like to play instruments. So I'll just use a kitchen knife. Okay, so you can see that this lateral force, it would kind of want to make the CG or the body like roll this way. It's like I'm pushing the feet out from under it and it's going to tip over this way. But the springs, the suspension springs, they're going to resist that. Because, I mean, this spring's pushing up, this spring's like pulling down, and they're trying to make a moment that's fighting that. Yeah, I use a katana instead. Okay, so we're going to have... Now we're going to add the moment that's resisting this moment from the lateral force. So let's first talk about the springs from the front. Maybe I'll use green here because I've been using green for those springs. So I'm going to have plus the spring at the front, the spring stiffness, times the distance it's compressed. Okay, so that's the force from the spring. And then it's acting over a distance SF over 2. So this is like looking at the spring on this side. But if I consider the spring on the other side of the car, the right side, I'm going to get the same force or the same moment. So I'm going to multiply this by 2. So this is the moment from front springs. Real Life Fruit Ninja. Oh my goodness, I haven't played that game in forever. But I really enjoyed it. Okay, so those are from the front springs. And then the same thing's going to happen at the rear. But potentially, you could have a different suspension stiffness at the rear. And you could have a different distance between their connection points. So this is the moment from the rear springs. Okay. Now, assumption, and the thing here that is important is that this deflection of the spring, the compression at the front and the rear, we're assuming it's the same. And that's based on the assumption that the roll angle is the same at the front and the rear. So we're assuming the chassis is rigid. It's rotating about this roll axis. And so that angle is going to be the same at the front and the rear. And because the angle is the same, this deflection, actually, doesn't the deflection depend on... No, the deflection isn't the same. It depends on how far away the spring is. Okay, so... we should do that. The roll angle is the same, but that doesn't mean that the springs are compressed the same. Okay. All right, this should be rear. Because it depends on the spring attachment point. Lewis says, why times 2 at the front? Because this term, it only considers a spring on one side. So, like, I was considering the suspension on the, I keep confusing myself. This is the left front side. So I was looking at the suspension regarding the left front tire, and that produces this term. But if you consider this is the contribution from the right front tire, it's going to give you the same term. So I'm just multiplying it by 2. So it's getting both sides of the car. Okay. Good. So what I want to do, I want to write everything in the roll angle. Like, what we're trying to do with this moment balance is figure out how much the vehicle is going to roll. So I'm going to replace these terms using this equation over here. So we're going to write it in terms of the roll angle. So this one should be delta Z SF over 2. This should be SF over 2 theta, right? And then this one, SR over 2 theta. Okay. So we'll continue with this. And before we move ahead, let's cancel out these 2's. There we go. And we know that the sum of the lateral forces should be equal to the mass of the car times its lateral acceleration. Okay, good. Okay, so here we go. Now we're going to say this is all equal to the negative of the mass times the lateral acceleration times the height of the CG above the roll center. CoJoule says, what's up, Dr. Estes? Just summing some moments, just using Newton's laws, that's all. Okay. And then we're going to have from the front springs, K springs at the front times SF squared, because I'm going to have SF times SF times the roll angle divided by 2. So that's the moment from the front springs. Let's add the moment from the rear springs. Spring R, SR squared phi over 2. All right. All right, now we get to introduce a technical vehicle dynamics term. Let's just gather some terms first. Minus m, lateral acceleration, height of the CG at the rear. And then these terms share this roll angle in common, right? So plus KSF times SF squared over 2 plus KSR times SR squared over 2 times my roll angle. Okay, here's the term. This right here is called the front roll rate. And the symbol for it is K phi at the front. And it's kind of like a torsional spring constant for your front suspension. This one, the rear roll rate, K phi R. All right. So we're going to be talking about tuning these terms. Okay, now I want to solve for this angle phi in terms of all the other stuff, because this is equal to 0 if the moments are balanced. So the roll angle of my car, is that subscript phi? Yes. Yeah, that's right. So I got K sub phi and then just F or R for the front or the rear. Okay. So I got phi is the mass times the lateral acceleration times the height of the CG above the roll center divided by the sum of my front and rear roll rates. And okay, so this is the roll angle. Now, there's also another term. So if we take the ratio of the roll angle to the lateral acceleration, so if I divide both sides by the lateral acceleration, let's do this. This is going to give you the amount of roll you get per lateral acceleration. And I want to give you some typical values for different cars. So, okay, so mass times the height of the CG above the roll plus the combination of my front and rear roll rates. This ratio is called your roll gradient. So let's give some typical values here. Let's do a passenger car. Let's do like a sportier car. Something like a Mustang, a BMW M4, something like that. And then we're going to do a Formula One. And we're going to give the roll gradient. So a passenger car, we're talking about like probably 8 degrees of roll per G of lateral acceleration. So probably in your passenger car, if you're pulling a G, probably 8 degrees of roll. Sports car, maybe 3 degrees per G of lateral acceleration. Formula car, more like 1 degree of roll. Can you think of why there's such a big difference here? Basically, like, well, one thing that's just kind of funny is the goals of these cars are totally different. Car geometry is so much different in all three of these cases. Yeah, I mean, exactly. Yeah, Pavelo brings up something, yeah, stiffness. The height as well. An interesting thing, like when you watch a commercial, I mean, it's the holiday season, so there's all these commercials about like luxury vehicles, and it's just quiet and like what's the whatever. They're advertising the ride of the luxury vehicle. Ride is kind of referring to if there's a bump in the road, you're not going to feel it. It's going to be just super smooth. And something that contributes to the ride of the vehicle is a little less stiffness, or maybe a lot less stiffness in your suspension. So like a passenger car or like a luxury vehicle, these roll rates are going to be smaller. Why are they going to be smaller? Because the springs are less stiff. Now, once you start talking about a sports car, a formula car, the goal of these is not to improve rider comfort. The goal is to get from A to B as fast as possible. And so a stiffer roll rate is better for load transfer. Yeah. Hardly any roll. So, using this kind of typical values, this is one way that we will, be able to get like a basic idea of how stiff the suspension is in a car. So let's do a quick example. We'll finish with this today. So we still haven't gotten to how you can tune front and rear load transfer, but it's going to come down to this roll angle. So we needed an expression for how much body roll we're going to get. So, okay, let's do a quick example. Let's say this is like the hat. Hey, thank you. Thank you. Let's say we got a BMW M4. And I'm going to say, what if we want a roll gradient of 3 degrees of roll per G of lateral acceleration? So what total roll rate do I need? All right. So we're going to have phi over AY. We know it's equal to the mass of the car. Wait, I'm just using this formula up here. I don't need to rewrite the whole formula. Okay. So we're going to have 1572 kilograms times 1/3 of a meter. That's going to be our height of our CG above our roll center. The M4 has a pretty low roll axis. And then we have our total roll rate down here. Here we go. Brilliant. Okay, and so let's talk about this. This is going to be 3 degrees, but let's convert it to radians. So pi radians per 180 degrees per G, and a G is 9.81 meters per second squared. So we got our total roll rate here is going to be this number divided by that number. 97,193 Newton meters of torque per radian of body roll. Or 1,000, let's do this in Newton meters per degree. Newton meters per degree. Here we go. Radian is necessary. Well, no, I guess it isn't. I guess it isn't because no, it isn't. I don't know why I said it is. I mean, a lot of the formulas we use, it's cleaner if we do radians, but now that I'm looking at it, we could have just done it in degrees. No, you're absolutely right. It's just a matter of habit. Shoot. Okay, thinking about the time here. Okay, we'll come back to this. We'll come back to this on Monday, okay? Because what we're going to do next is, assuming we know the roll, we're going to look at the moments acting on the front axle. And so when we assume that there's some roll happening here, then we're going to get some force on the front axle. Like in this case, I'm compressing this spring. So this load, it's going to pull down. I'm pulling this spring. That's going to create a load going on this direction on the axle. And then I have my normal loads on the tires. So from the pavement onto the tire. So we have like these 4 forces that are acting on the axle. And then assuming that the moments are balanced, like that we're not lifting a tire off the ground, then we're going to be able to solve for the normal loads here and here. And we can do the same thing at the rear axle. And once we start doing this, looking at the moments on each individual axle, we're going to get expressions for the load transfer at each axle, and it'll depend on the relative roll rate at the front and the rear, and it's going to depend on the relative roll center height at the front and the rear. So it's really cool because it's going to unpack like 3 or 4 things that you can do at each axle to dial in the load transfer at that axle. So that's what we'll do on Monday. And then you're going to have Thanksgiving break. Spring. Nicely done. Nicely done there. I love you. I mean, I love you. I love you too, I guess. The world needs more love. Whew. I know our notes are a little bit all over the place today. We'll see if I have time to get back in here, clean it up a little bit. Was talking to this dirty punter. Oh, okay. Got you. Yeah, that was a very nice pun by Rick. Well done. Very well done. Jenna says, I am so ready for break. Yeah, I hear you. This is a well-timed break. Everybody's going to get some well-deserved rest. And then when we come back, we just have 2 weeks of classes. Ricardo says, stiffer spring, less degrees of roll per G of AY. Yes. Stiffer springs mean you're going to get less roll per G of lateral acceleration. That's exactly correct. Yes. Absolutely. I think another one reason that a formula car wants so much less body roll as well is because of the aerodynamics. Like, a formula car is so low to the road. I don't think they can, like, you're gonna have your aerodynamic surfaces hitting pavement. So I think a lot of it's the load transfer consideration, but it's also just you're trying to maintain that aerodynamic profile. I love this video too.
The suspension, outboard suspension, which is the upright, the wheel, talking about balance. The reason is that these 4 tyres behave differently every part of the track, every corner of the track. And what we want to do is to control the relative amount of grip of those 4 tyres as the driver goes through the different phases of the corner and the circuit. What the suspension allows us to do is to change minutely the amount of grip that those 4 tyres generate at any one point on the track. And the way we do that is by adjusting.
By the way, I saw there's a job posting or multiple job postings at Mercedes F1. Just saying.
The inboard settings of the suspension by adjusting the damping and adjusting what we call the mechanical balance. That's because with that adjustment, we control the change of grip from the rear axle to the front axle. And that depends on the car speed and the track conditions. When we're running the car on the track, we make sure that we look at the suspension loads that we're generating. Sometimes we take that from sensors on the internal suspension, and sometimes we take that from sensors built into the suspension itself. And it's very critical for us to understand the real loads the suspension sees. So the maximum loads that we're designing the suspension for are based on simulation and are based on previous year's experience, and also a collection of unusual.
Yeah, I think they're hiring a couple simulation engineers. I forget the others.
Loads that we've recorded over the years in unusual conditions. Spinning the car, going backwards over a curb, hitting the brakes while the car's in the air and landing. And these are all critical additional load cases that have to be dealt with in the suspension design and testing. The suspension systems on the road car provide...
Lewis says, Dr. Estes, if you want to try mango shaved ice again, make sure not to go to Taiwan in winter. They're using frozen and defrozen mango. Oh, no bueno. The mango at summer is hand-cut mango, just an insight. Oh, thank you very much. I was there in summer, by the way.
Two functions. We call those ride and handling. And ride is about dealing with the surface of the road. Undulations, bumps, curves, changes in camber, ensuring that the grip is spread correctly between the four tyres. The handling is about dealing with the dynamics of the car, how the car behaves under braking, how it changes direction, how it does what the driver wants to do. Now, a Formula One car has got the same demands of ride and handling, dealing with lumps and bumps, curbs in the track, dealing with more aggressive dynamics of corner entry, braking, steering, acceleration. But the Formula One suspension has a third function, which we'll call platform control. Because Formula One cars generate enormous vertical forces from their aerodynamics, the suspension has to deal with literally tons of extra load on the car at high speed. And we have to make sure that the position of the car relative to the road is well controlled, because this has a very important effect on the aerodynamic performance of the car.
Yeah, I think what he's saying there, that platform control where the orientation of the formula car relative to the road surface is really important for aero. And I think a stiff suspension helps with that as well.
Cars and Formula One cars, very similar. They both have ride and both have handling control. The difference is with the Formula One car that it needs the platform control as well because of its dominant aerodynamic effects. We've been working with Daimler, in particular their ride and handling group, for many years, developing our tools for developing suspension systems. In the early days, we had Daimler engineers working directly with us, and as we've evolved our relationship, we've been developing the models, the tools that allow us to design. And the interesting thing is that although these components look very different, the fundamental physics is very similar. And we've been able to share lots of techniques in designing and analysing these complex systems, particularly the complex hydraulic components of the suspension. And some of these components on the road cars now share very much the same design philosophy as the Formula One components. So the suspension is just one of the many systems that link the Formula One car to the road car and show the bidirectional link between Daimler and Mercedes-Benz Formula One.
Wow, 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 wow. Yeah, where's this? Mercedes F1 careers. Technical roles. View the vacancies. Electronics inspector, performance and simulation engineer. Simulator operator, simulation and modeling engineer. What's the difference? To identify and develop solutions for performance limitations of the customer car, resulting in delivery of lap time improvements. Isn't that kind of funny? It's like, what's your delivery? A time improvement. Develop simulation and modeling tools. Everyone should check out BT's new song music video. It's called Life Goes On. Put the captions on to see the lyrics in English. Just saying. I hear you. I hear you. Uh-oh. Experiencing using MATLAB. What is this one? On-site gym, everybody. Jesse Pinkman. This would be really sweet. What is a racing? Oh, they don't have any openings for racing roles. Operations roles? What is this? Support engineer. Oh, IT. Is this a US location or Germany? I'm pretty sure this. I have a feeling they're in Germany. They say. I mean, the fact that it's like this on-site gym, I feel like it's the facility that was in that YouTube video. Who knows? This stuff is out there. It's probably Germany then. All right, time to get your passport. Yep. Exactly. Exactly. Bags are packed. See you in Germany. Yeah, that'd be sweet. It'd be really cool to be a part of I mean, high pressure. It seems like a very high pressure environment, but very, very, very cool. Whoa, look at this. So this is Red Bull Racing. They have some student thing. For 2021-2022, posted 3 days ago. what do you do? Wind tunnel, CFD, aerodynamic design, wind tunnel programs. Starting in summer 2021. Wait, what are the requirements? You must be returning to higher education to study for at least 1 year after the placement. What is this one? Are they all the same? CFD. CFD, yeah. Huh. Who knew? Hey, have a great weekend, Jenna. Have a great weekend, everybody. Hey, have a great weekend, MCAT. Adios.